From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything I you we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric, and as you probably know by now, we're Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics.
Hello, Ward.
Hello, Eric.
Look, we're not messing around today. We got a big-time guest who knows a lot about basketball. We're going to let him do the talking.
Yes.
We are, as always,
powered by
CommunityCars.com, sponsor of the pod, Hoosier Hysterics. CommunityCars.com, Hoosier Legends talk with Ward and Eric. CommunityCars.com.
Community Cars, don't be a jackass. Get your car from them because they're great people and they're going to give you the best price and they're the best service, and you're an idiot if you don't buy it from them. Period. Don't be a jackass.
They have all the colors.
All of them. And all the doors. How many doors you want?
4, 5?
Yeah, I think they got 5. You think they have 11 doors?
No.
No, they don't have 11 doors. All right, look. It's basketball time now. We've got a weekend coming up that I think this team is making the tournament. I have no doubt. I personally have no doubt they're making the tournament.
I feel good about it.
I think it's all about, can we get to the ceiling of this team, which is probably a 7 seed? And if we steal one of these next 2 games on the road, and I don't want to call it steal, if we beat Illinois or Purdue on the road, we are set up to be able to get a 7 seed. Because if we win one of those games, Ward, 13-7 is possible.
It's on the table. I don't think we'll get there. I think we'll probably get to 11-9, maybe 12-8. I think you tell me this, because you follow this stuff more closely than I do. How much these days would the selection committee factor in recency bias? Like, we're playing well to end the season.
I don't think it factors in all that much these days. I really don't. And I just don't think it matters all that much. Although I do think they look at, like, if there's like a personnel issue, if your best player got hurt or something. But I think they're rewarding you or penalizing you on your whole body of work. And here's the truth about our body of work. We've got 2 good wins. One of them is Purdue at home, which is a rivalry game. And the other is against the UCLA team that didn't have their best player and is struggling. And when you look at our record in quad 1 and 2 games, it's not good. It's not. It's 4-8 or something like that.
We don't beat really good teams. We don't lose to really bad teams. We're in this sort of middling ground of teams that, if they're on the right side of the bubble, maybe it's a bit of a coin toss. If they're on the wrong side, we've been beating them. I do like the way we're trending. It just so happens it's been against teams that aren't that good. Yeah.
I want to see it in a game that we absolutely should not, with finger quotes, win. Right. I do. Before I get excited, I don't think we have performed great in any of those games, whether it's Louisville, Kentucky, Michigan State, at Michigan. I just don't think. And the Purdue game, I'm sorry, Mike Woodson beat Purdue a bunch because it's a rivalry game, and it is different. It is different.
You could have looked at if we'd won that Nebraska game, but we blew it, right? And we do have this habit of being up by double digits in the second half against good teams and losing those leads. Now, fortunately, we've pulled them out at the end a couple times here recently, but it is a little bit of a worrying trend.
Yeah, and look, we didn't lose Nebraska by 1. Like, at the end of the game, we lost it without even being in the game.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was a real eye opener.
Michigan State, we were in the game at Michigan State, and then they just blew us out. We lost by 15 or whatever. Like, so I want to see it against one of these real teams, and we play 2 of these real teams on their courts. I want to see us compete well. Lamar Wilkerson has been out of his mind.
I mean, like, if we do anything in the Big Ten tournament / NCAA tournament, he's going to break Alford's record.
Yes, he's going to break Alford's record for 3-pointers. I think he's definitely on pace for that. And he's turning in arguably the best offensive season for an Indiana player since, from a scoring perspective, since Alan Henderson's senior year.
Well, but I think he's getting past that, right? And he's
I
the
don't
only
think his total average is past Allen's yet. Maybe in Big Ten
in
Ten
Big Ten
games
play.
it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And also
He's at
got
24.4 points, I think, per game in the Big Ten. It's insane.
and like I think, well, I don't know what Calbert's best ever was in the Big Ten, but he was averaging like basically 22 as a senior. And you've got to figure, well, let's even just look at the fact that Lamar has 2 of the 3 top scoring games ever in Assembly Hall.
I know.
Like,
I
what
know.
do we do? Like, I mean, we're starting to talk about it. You and I are talking about it right here, right now. But even in our text threads or nationally, I know Rabbi just put something out that Lamar absolutely should be on the midseason Wooden a watchword or whatever it is. We are, because he's maybe this transfer and IU hasn't been that good. I don't think any of us have quite wrapped our brain around how good this guy really is.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, he's as good as anybody that we have seen since Calbert. I mean, that's what I would say. Honestly, like Allen is a different player. Allen is he was a super skilled big man, but the different things that Lamar can do, the unlimited range, the being able to shoot off the catch, being able to shoot off the dribble, being able to drive and finish, being able to shoot the mid-range game. Like the dude is doing everything on the offensive side of the ball that you can do as a guard and doing it at a level that we have not seen. I mean, we just have not seen it since I do believe Calbert. I mean, it's really incredible.
Incredibly clutch at the free throw line. I'm shooting. He must be about at 90% now after what he's done over these last couple games. He's not the rebounder or defender, that Allen was. So I don't think you can get into the overall player conversation. Gordon obviously was hurt for a bunch of his time, wasn't shooting from the outside, but Lamar is taking his place amongst the all-time great IU scorers.
Yeah, I mean, Yogi's senior year was special, no doubt. Yogi was shooting way above 40% from 3, could drive the ball, was a great distributor and passer as well, an awesome defender.
Yeah.
Like Yogi was the man, in a way, and we won the Big Ten. So
and that
winning
Lamar
does matter. Winning does matter, and how you remember these players, it does.
100%. Big clutch shots at the end of games. And Lamar's been here for less than a season. I think we all will look upon his time here very fondly with what he's already done. And obviously he finishes strong. And by all reports is just a pretty wonderful human being. So that's super cool. And for somebody to come in and to buoy a new regime and make it feel like there's something here for us fans to get really excited about, even if we have doubts about how far can this team really go. He's worth tuning into for every night with what he's capable of putting up. And a lot of that also, not just the points he scores for the excitement of it, but that it helps us win. And we have been winning quite a few games lately.
And look, it's one thing for us to say it. It's another thing for somebody who's a professionally trained, studied analyst, coach, not reporter, but broadcaster to say it.
Yes.
And that's why we went back to the well to one of our favorite guests. Let's get to it.
Here comes our guest. Here comes our guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Hoosiers of all ages, one of our absolute favorite human beings on earth. We've already done something to make him laugh. How do we have as a guest here today, Eric?
Hailing from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I'm going to do an abbreviated version because we've done it multiple times, but he is the owner of 2 Big Ten championships as the head coach of Indiana. He took Indiana to the #1 ranking in the country, the #1 seed. He brought us back from the depths of despair. He went to the Final Four as head coach of Marquette. He has coached and developed incredible NBA players like Dwayne Wade, Victor Oladipo, Cody Zeller, Yogi Ferrell, Thomas Bryant, OG Anunoby, Anthony Edwards. And after his coaching career, he has now become, and we've been saying this since the first time we saw him, he is simply the best college basketball, and I should say basketball analyst in the country. You're stopping me in the middle of my run here, Ward.
No, I'm saying #1. He's #1. I'm agreeing with you, Eric.
Okay, good. Yeah, he is the best. He is
Keep
the
going.
best.
Keep going. I like it. Keep going.
He's the busiest man in basketball. Somehow he left coaching and became busier. So we are honored to have him back. Always good to have him back. And maybe this time, I think really for the first time, probably more of an insight to share with us about Indiana as a team than in recent years. He's gotten a chance to call a game of Indiana, and we want to pick his brain about all things Indiana, but also all things college basketball. Please welcome back to the podcast the one and only Tom Crean.
Thank you very much. Always good to be with you guys. So it's always festive.
Yes, it is always festive. Let's start with tell everybody what you are. What are all of your jobs right now?
I've got quite a few now, which is great. I actually just signed with Fox, so I'm going to start doing a couple Fox games here late in the season. That was just like 2 weeks ago, I think that was.
Wow,
but
congrats.
a lot of ESPN studio, like you mentioned. I did Marquette in Indiana. I was an add-on to that because there was a travel delay for Corey Alexander, who was going to call the game, and that worked out great to be able to do something like that. But I was in Milwaukee because I also took a spot with FanDuel Sports Network to do pre and post game for different games for the Milwaukee Bucks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And really, it started out with Minnesota, and then a couple weeks later, it became Milwaukee as well. And so I do that. I do it from home. I'm actually sitting in a studio that we have in our house here. I mean, FanDuel Sports Network came in and after about 3 trips, put together a heck of a studio in here. And I'm doing this on the computer, not the television monitors, but that's worked out really good to do that. I'm doing NBC and Peacock. I've done 3 games for them this year so far. That might be it for them this year, but I signed a 2-year deal with them.
Wow.
Westwood One Radio has been fantastic to me, and I love that. I did the NCAA tournament all the way through the Elite Eight last year. I'm going to do that again. And one regular season game is Kentucky at Florida, and then I'll do a conference championship, and then I'll do the tournament, and that's about it. Sirius XM is when it gets closer to the draft. So for me, I've said this on here before. I mean, the hardest thing about all of it is not being busy, because even when you were away, you really were never off. When you're coaching and living in Florida is like living in a perpetual vacation. So it's great, but at the same time, I just like being busy. And so the college basketball and the pro basketball season gives me that, and I love it. And then I try to figure out more things to do in the off season with camps or NBA Top 100 or things like that.
You're such a student of the game, studying the film, figuring out what's going on a basketball court. Do you have a similar approach to your work as an analyst? Do you ever look at other analysts or look at your own tape and try to figure out what you could do better? Or is it just the focus on the game?
Well, I want the feedback, and you have to seek out feedback in most cases in television. And I get really, really good feedback when I ask for it. I get great feedback at ESPN from Jack Obringer, who runs all the studio shows and a big part of Sports Center and all the stuff that's there. So, yes, I want feedback. Some I go back and look at what I did, but mostly it's immediately after the game, I've got a pretty good handle on what I wish I would have done better. And so I'll get that in notes, put that together. Definitely I'll go back and look. But most of the time, I'm spending my time getting ready for the next thing. So there's always going to be announcers that I will watch that I did, before I was in broadcasting, that I don't want to watch them without a notebook, right, and or notepad and certainly a pen in place. And it's always been like that. Whether you see a new play, whether you hear a phrase, whether you see a statistic, now you can even take pictures with your phone at times. But there are definitely people, I wouldn't say that I emulate them, but there's people that I like to listen to because I know you're going to absolutely learn something. And that's my whole goal with this, to keep learning. And whatever I'm learning, bring it to the viewer or the listener, and at the same time, bring what I already know. And the biggest thing to me is to not get caught up in what coaches say, maybe even what some other broadcasters say because of what maybe they heard from a coach. And I'm not going to do that, right? Like I'm paid to say and talk about what I see and what I know, not what somebody wants me to see for them. And so if they go together, great. But if they don't, I'm going with what I see because again, I know I'm going to study it. and it's not about. I really, really, really would feel bad myself if I was just ever throwing stuff against the wall, knowing it wasn't true, or just, man, I hope somebody will pick this up and I become viral. I don't want that. I have no goal for that. And so I really try to make sure that I'm saying things that I'd want to hear if I was on the other end. And then at times I've had to really figure out how to say it and explain it, realizing that I'm not talking to a world of coaches,
Right.
or even basketball people. So I try to learn that, and that's where I like feedback a lot. So I don't get too carried away with going too far into the weeds on the basketball without the explanation.
What do you like better, being an analyst in the studio or being at the game calling the game?
I like them both. That hasn't changed. I like the studio a lot. The studio keeps you sharp in the sense, and it's been more of a challenge this year with the NBA, because not only do I do those games, I do a lot of Countdown Live for FanDuel Sports Network, and so I do that with Stan Verrett once, maybe twice a week, where I'll be in a segment, and so, like, man, you got to know, right? Like, you got to know things. So I've always taken great pride in knowing everything I could possibly know about going to the studio for basketball, and I'm trying to do the same thing with the NBA. So I think I get a lot of juice from the learning. But as long as I'm getting games, where I can be in the environment and be around the energy, then I'm fine. It doesn't have to be predominant games, but I wouldn't be as excited if it was just studio with no games. And again, I love the studio, but I also love the juice of the games. I love the energy of seeing the walkthroughs, and I love seeing it come together.
Well, one quick follow-up there, because we've talked to you so many times. We've learned a lot about you. We know how much, and I follow you on X, and your Twitter stream is so great because you talk about things that most people don't recognize are important in the game. And we know from what you've told us before how important body language is, how important the stuff that you don't see on TV is. How is somebody when they go to the bench? Are they looking at the coach in the eye? What's their relationship with the other players? When you're in the studio, it's harder to see all that stuff as opposed to being at a game. How do you fill in the gaps when you're in studio just watching the broadcast like we all watch and get all that other information that I know is so important to you?
Oh, I'm still looking for it. Oh,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. I'm still looking for it. I'm looking for outlier situations, looking for runs, looking for the coverages, in the game. I may not call it out as much as I might at a game, because, again, when you're in TV, you're going to do the 4-minute timeout of the first half, and that's quick. You're going to do some halftime, but a lot of times that's what already is going on in other games or what game is coming up. So you may not necessarily spend a lot of time on the game you're in. You might have already spent time on that game in another game. And then you might have time after the game to talk about it. So I want to make sure that what I'm saying, I think that the big thing that I've learned in college studio that is so important is the forecast, right? Forecasting the last 4 minutes, forecasting the second half. Not being as much in revisionist history, right? Like, why is it this way, but what has to happen? And I think that really, that plays well with my mind, because that's what the game is. That's what basketball is. I mean, you're living in the moment as a coach, but you have got to be thinking ahead, with plays and at halftime. And the halftime adjustments are the most overrated thing, really, in football, basketball, you name it. Baseball, they don't get a halftime adjustment. They got to make adjustments right then, right? And that's really what basketball is too. Like, you got to make adjustments quick. So I'm looking for those kind of things on television. I'd be more apt to call out the body language, the bench body language, those kind of things during the game, actually. Right. But I think you make it part of your picture when you're watching it in the studio for your forecast.
Got it.
And a lot of times, to me, the greatest thing I've learned about TV that applies to coaching, who's leading the game is not necessarily the team that's playing the best. And I think a lot of times you forecast, like, somebody might be down 24-14, and it's like, man, they're just missing open shots. They're getting great looks. Or somebody might be up 24-14, and they're taking bad shots, and two guys are squabbling so they didn't get back on defense, and one guy wants a call. Like, I'm trying to look at that stuff too. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. But I'd rather take a shot at the forecast of what I'm seeing based on just regurgitating what's already happening.
Sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's go back to the beginning of the season when your worlds collide and you get the call. Obviously, it wasn't quite planned out that way,
Mm-mm.
but somebody else wasn't available, and you find yourself calling your two former teams, Marquette versus Indiana. Just give us how that felt when you realized that was happening, and as you were doing it, what all feelings went through, and how much did you kind of have to put those aside and just put on your professional analyst cap and not sort of revel in the fact that these were your schools?
Yeah, it really, like, all my notes were in Florida. I was in Milwaukee and I was in between games, and I'd gone to see Marquette practice that Saturday because it was a Friday Sunday Bucks situation, and the first text and call came in on Saturday night at about 7:30 that night that there could be an issue, a travel issue, and lo and behold, it didn't get finalized and all done until close to midnight. But fortunately, once it came up, I don't go out to eat anyways, really. I might like walk somewhere, but like I just stayed right there. I dove into the film because I didn't have anything with me except my computer, right? And I had knowledge of, memorization because I'd watched both teams so much, and I just seen or watched their preseason stuff. Obviously, it was the beginning of the season, and knew their players from their past teams. But like I had to put it together in a hurry. And right about 11:30 midnight is when it became clear that I was going to do it, that FanDuel Sports Network agreed. And what I ended up being able to do was come back and do the second half of the Bucks game, which really was the second part of my job, which is the post game. So we worked it out. I got there. I got up early. I was there early. I was working with Dave O'Brien, which was big for me. I've never worked with him. He's just absolutely one of the best.
Total.
I mean, he's in a first sentence guy when it comes to great broadcasters. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So that was great, but it really was. It was not as hard as I thought it could be, because obviously I've not been back to Indiana for a game, and I'd not had an Indiana game. But I have so many former guys that were on that staff, like Drew Adams and Kenny Johnson, and I saw Don Fisher right away when we were there, and then the fans were just unbelievable. I've been back to Marquette, but I'd never been back to Indiana, and the fans were just awesome. And again, I had a headset on most of the time, but they were just awesome. And it really, I wasn't as uptight about doing a game with two teams that I love and coached as much as I wanted to make sure I was ready for this broadcast, because I didn't get to put what I would normally put into it. But I did feel good about it. Dave was great. And I just kind of called it as we went, but it was I don't want to say it was surreal because it was going so fast, but when it was over, I thought, man, that was absolutely cool to be able to do that.
So, look, absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's been longer since you were at Marquette than it was since you were at Indiana, obviously, because you're at Indiana afterwards. But I've followed you, and I think many fans have. There seems to have been a lot of recognition for you and your time at Marquette over the last couple of years.
Yeah,
I've seen you back there.
Last weekend was unbelievable.
Yeah, and congrats on that. And it's wonderful to see.
It's unbelievable.
Why haven't we seen that with Indiana yet?
I don't know. I have no idea. It's all driven by Marquette. Those teams were really good, so there was going to be some. The Hall of Fame thing, I think some of it was certainly Steve Wojciechowski before Shaka Smart, with some of that, with bringing me and some of the others back into the fold. Shaka Smart has been huge in that. Mike Broker, who we hired in media relations in 2003, and I worked with him the next 5 years that I was there, and now is the athletic director, has played into that, certainly. A lot of former players, that are very, very active back there. So I don't know. I don't have any idea on the Indiana thing. I go back to the Hall of Fame, because the players invite me. Like I don't get that from Indiana, right? Like I don't get a, hey, you were honoring such and such. We'd love to have you come back. No, I get the invite from the players, and which is fine because I'm going back anyways because those guys are there.
But how gratifying is that for you that the players reach out to you and ask you?
Absolutely.
That's got to be amazing.
Absolutely. I'll cancel something and I hope I can always do it, because a lot of times I don't know when it's going to be until I hear from them. And both years I've canceled things so that I could be back for Victor and Cody. I mean, there's no question. And I love it. I love being back. I love seeing them. I love seeing their families. I love seeing the other former players that come back. You always see people. This year was a chance to see Dr. Rink right after his wife had passed away, and we both were on the same flight the next morning. I was going to Houston for a camp for John Lucas, and he was going out to L.A. to see his grandson play, and we sat, just happenstance, ironically, right across the aisle from each other.
That's great.
On a flight. I think we went direct to Houston. I think, but I mean, we sat right across from each other, right? Like, that was so awesome to be able to see him. I got to see Tim Garl, who I hadn't seen since all of that stuff there. So that's really great for me. And if I get a game for television, man, I go back in 2 seconds. I mean, it's I've compartmentalized. And Scott Dolson's been great. I mean, he was great when I saw him at the Hall of Fame. I'm rooting for Indiana in football. I worked with Coach Cignetti 30 plus years ago at Pittsburgh.
I want to get into that a little more.
Yeah, and we spent time together then. I hadn't seen him since, but I've certainly followed his career, and then what he's done at Indiana has been phenomenal. But I don't get too worked up over any of that. But I'm telling you what, now, when that Marquette stuff I never ever coached for 9 years there thinking that I would have a banner next to Al McGuire and Hank Raymond's. I never thought like that, right? Like, it's just when you're in the midst of it, you're not thinking like that. You are thinking about the banners for your team, and you are thinking, once you have some great players, about their names going up. But you just don't think about yourself with it. But to be back for that, to have all those former players there, to have our first Big East team honored, to have Dwayne Wade, who was at one of his wife's newest movie premiere, I should say, on a Friday night, get on a plane, fly red-eye from LAX to Chicago, drive up, get a couple of hours sleep before the game, be there with me, and then go back to Chicago to fly back home. I mean, come on, man. I mean,
that's awesome. That is just awesome.
That stuff outweighs anything when you've got former players like that and you get to see their families or be with them like that. And it's not like I don't see them. There was some I hadn't seen in a long time. But it's the same way with the Indiana guys. We just pick up from where we left off.
That's great.
I think it is a great segue you made in terms of your time with Coach Sig. I don't think a lot of people know about that connection. And then just for you as a guy who spent the better part of a decade in Bloomington with, not the greatest success happening across the parking lot, what was it like to see Coach Sig and just all of Hoosier Nation, one, have the realization dawn that we have one of the greatest football teams of all time on the field? And how much fun was it for you just to watch those games, watch those teams, and be a part of a historic season like the rest of us as a fan?
Well, I tell you what, I look at it a little differently, because those 9 years, whether it was Bill Lynch, whether it was Kevin Wilson, not Tom Allen, because he came in for Kevin, and we really never had I think I met Tom Allen maybe twice, and it was quick, right? And but we worked tirelessly with that football program, and they worked beyond tirelessly. Like, when I say tirelessly, we're doing our stuff, but whatever we could do to help football, we were going to do, right? Whatever we could do, recruiting, I mean, you name it. And I watched how hard those guys worked. I watched how good Bill Lynch was with me early. I watched Kevin Wilson go through so many things. And it was a different time. There's no doubt about that. And it was certainly a different time. But it was also a different administration. And I think that there's a lot of that's incredibly valuable, right? Because I watched those coaches go through a lot, especially all that time with Kevin. And there were a few days that he had one leg tied behind and one arm tied behind and another one on the way back there. At times, the stuff that he was trying to do. And so to watch where it was and how hard people worked, to see where it is now, was incredible. And to see a guy that I know more about Coach Cignetti, not just because I worked around him for a year, but because of my friend Mike McCarthy is so, Mike McCarthy would look at his father, Frank, and Marty Schottenheimer as second father types to him to go along with his own father, who's in Pittsburgh. So I would always hear Frank Cignetti Sr. stories. And Frank Cignetti Jr. is one of Mike's best friends. He just hired him on his Steelers staff. So we would always have that connection of talking. And I would always follow what Kurt's teams at the different places. And I knew when he went to Alabama, and I knew when he left Alabama. But I don't know him like that. But the guy I knew at Pitt was just a straight business assassin. Like, he was organized. Our time together was a mix on recruiting of dual athletes, recruiting for games and making sure the tickets and things like that were squared away, and then being at different events with our head coaches, him with Johnny Majors or me with Ralph Willard, that were speaking in donor events. So we would interact some at those types of things. But Coach Cignetti was locked in. And he just was. I mean, he was locked in. I mean, it was all business. And man, when you were around him, you didn't need a lot of time. Things got done. And I'm sure 30 plus years later, he's parlayed it into an incredible view of what he's done as a head coach. And I just love reading about him. I love the fact that no one can, and I think this is what drove the media mad for so long. They couldn't put him in a box.
Right.
They couldn't label him. Okay. Yeah, he worked for Nick Saban, but you can't label him a Nick Saban guy. He's a Frank Cignetti Sr. guy. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's no offense to Nick. Right. But Nick didn't move him up. Right. Like there were coordinator chances and things like that. Kurt went on to be his own coach. The path he took is a lot like my brother-in-law, Jim, where when Jim was quality control coach and then 2-minute offensive coordinator and assistant quarterback coach for the Raiders, everybody told him in the market, the job market, well, you got to take a path. You got to go be a quarterback coach in college. Then you get a coordinator's job at a mid-major. Then maybe you get a coordinator's job at a bigger school. Well, then you got a chance to become a head coach. And he's like, forget all that. I'm going to coach. So he goes to the University of San Diego, and in a couple of years he sets records that still stand. His last quarterback is Josh Johnson. He's still in the NFL. So like, he went against everybody's conventional wisdom that wanted to check boxes on how you do this. And Coach Cignetti did the same thing, man. I mean, it's incredible. He bet on himself. And when you want to be a head coach like that, like Kurt did and like Jim did, and then you go through all those different things you go through, so when Coach Cignetti's talking about lining fields and doing laundry, Jim Harbaugh's doing the same thing at the University of San Diego. So like, you see that in your own family member. You see how bad they want to coach, how passionate they are, and what they learn that a lot of head coaches don't learn. Now, Kirby Smart learned this and I could see this because he came up as a GA. A lot of guys don't learn how valuable every position in the program is. They don't learn it, man. And Jim learned it. Kurt obviously has learned that. Like, there's no position in the program that he's not going to know what that thing entails to be highly successful, because he's either lived it or, very, very, very importantly, he's been in charge of it. And, when you're the head coach at Indiana, PA, and Elon, man, you're kind of running the GA program too. Right. And a lot of times you get to be a major college head coach, you're not running that program. Somebody else is running that. Somebody else is running quality control. No, when you're doing those things like he and Jim did, like, you got a handle on all of it. And I think that says a lot. I think that's brought a lot of help bring success to Kurt, because it's not about the steps that he took. It's about how successful he was in each and every one of those steps to get to the point that he is. And so I'm really happy for him. I'd love to see him sometime, shake his hand, give him a hug, and tell him it's just an honor to watch him. But it's great. It was great to watch them. And I loved it.
One more pseudo football, and then we'll get back to Indiana basketball. One of the things Kurt did when he came to IU, he played the media a little bit and the fan base. He said Ohio State sucks and Purdue sucks and all this and Google me, and he talks pretty transparently about how he did that on purpose to see, like, what's the temperature of this fan base. Like, he had to do something that maybe really wasn't native to him to just stir up some excitement a little bit. When you came to Indiana as the coach, now, look, you're a passionate guy, so some of this is just organic to who you are. But it felt like, especially with those early teams where you knew you knew that first team that you had at Indiana was not going to compete for a Big Ten championship. But you did things to engage the fan base, to get the fan base excited. And I'm wondering, how calculated was that for you, where you're like, no, look, I know it's going to take us a little bit to get the program back, but I've got to get the fan base back and create some emotion. So that's on me to be, and I don't mean this in any pejorative way, but the cheerleader. I have to engage. Was that conscious for you at the time?
Absolutely, because I had to do it. I had to do it at Marquette. We walked into Marquette. There were 6,700 fans when we took over. When we left, there's almost 16,500. And I tell you where it is. That's a great question, which nobody's ever asked. It's a great question because it all starts with your passion for the program.
Yeah.
Right. And I grew up. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Like outside of Central Michigan University, where I grew up, the two biggest college basketball programs to me when I started to watch college basketball were Indiana and Marquette, right? Back-to-back champions,
Sure.
Right? And so, like, that's when I fell in love with basketball on more than just, my seeing of basketball was Central Michigan University and being able to go to a game. But television now, that was Indiana, that was Marquette, that was Al McGuire, it was Bob Knight, it was all those things. So, like, it all started with a passion for how much I loved where I was at and how proud I was to be at those places. But what changed at Indiana especially is, or what I should say it changed, but it grew. You realize like, oh, wait a minute, we're in real trouble here. Like this is not what I thought it was going to be when I did the interview. There's way more issues here than I thought. We're going through them constantly. And then I think what happened is early on, there's no question that administratively they had no thought or plan that we were going to lose that fan base, especially the students. We were down to half the student population my first year.
Wow.
So no one ever thought about that. There were people there that saw themselves as marketers that really didn't want me being involved in that as much. And it's like, well, first off, I'm going to be. And second of all, when you realize where it's at, like, okay, we got to be. But we got to be together, right? We got to be together. We built it together at Marquette, and it was going to have to be that way at Indiana. And Fred Glass did a really good thing that first year where he made the $5 tickets for the upper deck because we were going to struggle for a bit with that. So, yes, I knew we were behind. No, I never went into any game not thinking there was a way for us to be in this game with 5 minutes to go. That was the goal, right? How do we get in this game with 4 or 5 minutes to go so we have a chance to win it at the end? But the passion wasn't anything about, oh boy, we got to trick people. It was about, I want people to feel about this the way I do. And if they don't, I'm going to work to get them there. Because I know there's plenty that do. I know there's plenty that do, and we're never going to take them for granted. But we got to get these people behind us. And so I think I understand what Kurt did, but I would also look back at Kurt and I would say when he walked into Indiana, he believed he was going to win because he knew he was a heck of a coach.
Yeah.
And the times were different and things like that were different. And then the money, he had the money to be able to do that in the portal. And the one thing that he had was obviously his evaluation skills are incredible, but it goes back to how well he picked his James Madison players and developed them.
Well,
because he didn't miss, man, in that first portal. He might have missed on one, maybe two guys in that first recruiting class of that first portal class, and look what happened. I mean,
well, it's funny because Tom, you said this to us a year ago about like what's really interesting about these guys that are leaving now in this age where you can bring people with you is how do you do after that? Because those guys at JMU, he's known for 3-4 years. He's recruited for, and I would say the same thing exists with like Ben McCullum at Iowa. He brought Bennett Sturts with him. He brought 4 guys from Drake with him. It's funny. Darren was only able to bring Tucker with him. He wasn't able to bring a lot with him from West Virginia. He was only there for 1 year, but, and then the real test comes, okay, when the attrition of those guys goes away, how do you do on these short recruitments when you don't have the institutional knowledge? I think Kurt did pretty well in this last year. But it is the challenge, right? Going forward with all guys is how do you do after your security blanket goes away?
No question. And I think, and I'll say this, I hope Kurt continues. I love the one line he said about, we'll Coaches will come in and want to study your program and say, I'm not too big on visitors. I want to watch film.
Yes.
Like, I hope he doesn't change that.
Yes.
Like, when I look at him, when I look at working around Kirby Smart, and Dan Lanning was on that staff and is a good friend of mine, so I saw that. I saw what Jim did. Those guys aren't out there pontificating about every subject known to mankind, right? And now Jim would get involved in hot button topics, politically, or abortion rights and religion and things like that, because that's how Jim was comfortable. But you don't see Kirby Smart or Dan Lanning or Coach Cignetti jumping up there day in and day out and telling the world how they do things.
No.
And I think that is incredibly valuable because yeah, everybody copycats. Like, it's all these people go into programs. Yeah, well, you got to share as a coach. Man, the coaching profession is messed up. Okay, there it is. There aren't very many coaches that want to help their peers get better at what they're doing. Now, do you want to help high school coaches, and do you want to help younger coaches? Sure, you hope so. You should want to do that. But man, this thing is so competitive now with the money. It's always been competitive, but it's so competitive with the money, with the portal, with the cheating. I mean, like, you think Dabo Swinney is going to bring in anybody from Ole Miss even before, all this kind of stuff?
Right.
With Pete Golding. By the way, when's the last time we heard anything about what's going on with the Ole Miss Pete Golding texting thing? Right? Like, people, the coaching profession is wild. And so, yeah, you want to be supportive. Yeah, you want to be a good person. Yeah, you want to promote coaching and promote other coaches. But you don't want people coming in your program. You don't want people coming in there and seeing what you're doing, because this is so hard right now. The cheaters always had a competitive advantage because they had the money. But now everybody's got money to an extent. So you've got to find other competitive advantages if you're not going to cheat off the books. And there's still some of that going on in basketball and football, without a doubt. But if you're not going to do that, you got to keep finding edges and inviting people in to come see your program and how you do things. Man, forget all that. I hope he never gives in to that, because he's got an edge, man. He worked his face off to build that edge.
Yeah.
And he did it with his staff as well. And I don't think we're going to see Coach Cignetti doing a ton of clinics and things like that. And I think that's good. I think that's good. You know what? Do what he did. Turn the film on. Turn the film on and study. That's what I do in television. I'm not calling a bunch of coaches because I'm paid to see what I see, right? But if I have a question, hey, what are you doing here? Am I wrong if I say that you're trying to do this? Like, I'll do that. I'll go to walkthrough. But I'm not trying to get there are people in television that watch minimal film and make a ton of calls, right? Well, I'm not doing that. That works for them. They can get paid a lot of money. Good for you. I'm not doing that because I'm doing it based on what I see. And it's the same thing with coaching. So that's my tangent on that. But I think Kurt has got it. I don't think he walked into the Big Ten and say, man, how am I going to beat these guys?
Right.
Right. I really don't. And I'm not putting words in his mouth. I don't know that. That's just my perception. And I don't think he walked in scared one out about coaching staffs at schools. My guess is he probably knew he better have the resources to be able to deal with. Now, that you get afraid of. You get afraid of the resources somebody else has that you don't have. You don't get afraid of other coaching staffs.
I think we're looking at college football in a whole new way, in that now the Big Ten has money to pay players, where it was perceived that the SEC could do that well before it was legal.
The people in the Big Ten were cheating, though, too. I mean, there's no question they were. I mean, we can't tell the stories on here, and they're not my stories to tell.
Sure.
But I've heard them. But to what you're saying, yeah, I underestimated it in the SEC when I went there. Big time.
Well, and I guess where we're at now is the narrative around college football is you can't stack the kind of depth that you used to be able to at Alabama, where you could have 3-4 guys deep on your defensive line that are all going to play on Sundays, because you have the resources that other schools didn't have, and that that talent is much more spread around the country now. I'm wondering, do you feel that's what's going on in basketball as well, that there's like a talent dispersal that's gone on because more schools have more resources to bring players in? And is that as significant or less so, because you really only need like 8 or 9 players in basketball as opposed to 50 in football. So is depth and the depth of talent down the line as important with the game?
Yeah, absolutely. And but the things that are different in basketball is you can go to Europe now. And before, people were always going to Europe, but the hurdles and the hoops that you had to climb through were unbelievably hard. I mean, Guy Marc Michel, okay, who we recruited a long time ago at Indiana, and it was from overseas, and the hoops we had to go through and couldn't cross them, right? Because of Europe and because of junior college grades, and like he would have been a rubber stamp, you know, in this day and age to play, right? Like no question about it. And it's so different. I mean, every time you turn a game, a Utah Jazz game on, there's AJ DeBonsa and his dad sitting courtside at a Jazz game. Like, is that part of the NIL package? I mean, cool. That's cool. Okay. But I mean, it's like it's so different right now. And I think because of Europe and because players can leave after 1 year from college, it's different than than in college football, where you got to be in that program 3 years. So yes, it's different with the schools that could stockpile talent. You know, giving somebody an extra 50 grand of their family, an extra 50 grand under the table is not the same now as somebody be able to get 500,000, 600,000, 700,000, 800,000, 900,000 on the books, right? And so I think that has certainly changed. And I do think Nick Saban is right. Like the Big Ten has been a beneficiary of being able to go anywhere in the country to get players, especially going into the South now, especially getting kids out of the portal, because they have the kind of money that they have. You know, they had the stature that they had, but they didn't have the money that they have. Well, now they have it. So I think it's different in basketball. I think the thing we see a lot in basketball right now, to me, is I think evaluating who can play for you, who can play for your head coach. Big one to me, and I've probably mentioned this on here before, but it is huge to me, is who can make the jump from mid to high major, who can make the jump from low to high major, who can make the jump from low to upper mid major, who can make those jumps athletically, size-wise, physicality-wise, balance-wise, shooting-wise. You know, you see it all the time. Like, that's why, like, we'll talk about Indiana, but Lamar Wilkerson has made a jump. And what this stood out to me when I did that Marquette Indiana game with Tucker and with Lamar. Marquette was stunned by their range. Like, they were stunned by the range that they had shooting the ball, right? And I think, like, Lamar Wilkerson, what got him going, what got him, you know, obviously he's a really, really good player, but he's got great three-point range. He can get his shot off. Now, do I think he does real well with big physical guards and length? No, I think that can be an issue for him. But he's got so many different ways to beat you off the dribble or to get his shot off because of the range. And when you have that kind of range, what happens is you increase the distance and the length of the closeout. So if you don't get out there on the closeout, you've got more of an open shot. If you do get out there on the closeout because of the deep range, well, now you're beating somebody off the dribble, and now you can maneuver on the second defender. Lamar Wilkerson that's what, you know, everything I've heard about him is he's a great kid. But, like, you'd be the greatest kid in the world if you can't get your shot off in the Big Ten, coming from where he came from. Well, it's not going to matter. But now the dude is getting 40s and one of the top-level scorers in the country. He's going to play in the NBA at some point. Now, he may have to get there the hard way. He may have to do a little G League first, but he's going to play in the NBA because that shooting range and that ability to be quick like that, and the amount of open shots you get in the average NBA game is way more than people think, right? Now, you might have a hand getting there, but you're going to get some open shots because the spacing is intact every night. And so that's the kind of stuff that I think you really have to watch in college basketball recruiting. It's not just the money. It's not just who you're paying for. Can they make the jump? And then I think what happens is there's not enough work being done on what is this player leaving for, right? Why are they leaving? Are they leaving just for more money? Are they leaving because they're not getting developed? Are they leaving because they don't fit? Are they leaving because they're hard to coach? And there's so much going on. Like right now in LA at the All-Star game, there's more agents and assistant coaches out there over the next few days. That's like the Peach Jam, right? And I'm telling you, it is because that's where deals are getting done. I've got friends in the high major level that are getting 5, 6, 7, 8 calls a week from agents, and that's just one guy on a staff, not to mention the other guys on the staff that are getting the same amount on who's leaving, and that's been going on since January.
Right.
Heavy in February, but it's definitely been going on since mid-January.
All right, so let's talk about Indiana basketball a little bit. Obviously, Marquette and Indiana have had very different seasons since that point. Marquette's in a little bit of a rebuild, and look,
They're getting
Shaka
better,
has,
though. They're getting better. They really are. They're improving. But you're right as far as where their seasons are. But I'm really impressed with how they've continued to improve. That league's tougher than what it is because there's one really, really great team and one that's right there with them in St. John's, and then everybody else is kind of in a mix based on a given night.
So what have you seen from Indiana since that? Because the team has changed quite a bit. You know, at that time when you watched them, Tucker and Lamar were really equal offensive options on this team. They were looking at both of them as 1 and 1A, and it's changed a little. Lamar is clearly the 1A option, and Tucker has become, I give him credit, more of a glue guy in many ways. He's still got the range, but he's rebounding better than he ever has. He's getting assists. He's cutting. What have you seen from Indiana over the course of the season?
Much improvement, and a change in how they utilize players, especially with Sam Alexis. I mean, Sam Alexis was a really good player at Chattanooga. He won a national championship at Florida, and he was hurt at the end, right? And I mean, but I remember seeing Sam Alexis a year ago in the summer when he first got there, and I go, oh my goodness, because I went up to watch practice, and it's like, man, like he's really good, right? And so he had a very good year on a very good team, and then he got hurt. But I think the way they've got him driving, the way he's playing with more presence on the perimeter. But here's the biggest thing I think. The Nick Dorn situation's been good. Their whole team is way better physically on offense. And by that I mean they attack your bodies, right? Like they beat Wisconsin because Wisconsin, since Bo has been there, Wisconsin's a really good team. I'm not saying that, and they got great skill and they can shoot, but you can drive Wisconsin. You know, Bo's old teams, that was much harder to do. They don't have great contact balance at Wisconsin. They got great skill, right? They can shoot it. They can shoot it deep. When they beat Michigan with 15 threes, it was not a fluke because they got really, really good skill. But you can beat them off the dribble. You can hit them and create space. And that's exactly, to me, in my view, how Indiana beat them in that game. And Indiana wasn't doing that early. They've gained confidence. They are so different than the first 10 minutes of the Michigan game, which I thought was one of the worst openings of a game I've seen all year long, you know, for how they tried to attack Michigan. They didn't attack them. They let Michigan set the tone, right? They took all kinds they didn't touch the paint, right, you know, for like the first 9, 10 possessions, right? This team has improved so much since the Michigan game, to me. And I think that's a credit to the coaching. It's certainly a credit to the coaching. It's credit to the development. And the confidence keeps growing. And then they put some wins together that have just been huge, right? Absolutely huge, because they found ways to win close games. And I think the one out in California, the USC game, right? Like that was a win, right?
No, UCLA.
Oh, UCLA. Yeah, I'm getting confused. But that UCLA one was overtime, right?
Yeah.
That's right. I got the California schools confused because they were back to back. But yeah, exactly. Like the way they won that in physical, you know, UCLA, we're physical, we're tough. Man, they got anywhere they wanted in that game, right? Yeah. And to me, that's where they run into trouble. And this is what's one of the benefits of the Big Ten right now, okay? Oregon, no block shots, right? No rim pressure, really, at Oregon. Wisconsin, no rim pressure. When they run into teams that can pressure the rim, that can keep you at bay in the paint, that have length and physicality in the paint, they're going to have a problem, right? And they have. But the Big Ten's not full of those teams.
Yeah, I was going to say, outside of Michigan and Illinois, is that basically it?
No, Michigan State's got that. Those guys are still pretty physical.
Yeah.
At Michigan State.
But even Purdue doesn't really have that.
No, not like that, because Oscar Clough struggles on the perimeter.
Right.
Trey Kaufman-Renn is still really good, but Trey Kaufman-Renn, where Purdue gets in trouble is when you've got bigs that can shoot the ball, because and they stay true to their schemes And that's why the Nebraska win for them was so big. But they stay really true to how they want to guard, and you can exploit that sometimes with their bigs because Trey Kaufman-Renn is their best big defender, but he's only one guy. And so you can get Oscar Clough away from the rim. You can hurt him. Now, you're going to have to outscore Purdue because they can. There's so many different ways they can beat you. But again, that Indiana win was huge. The way they played them, they guarded. So that physicality on offense that they have has made them a better defensive team. Because I was really concerned. Marquette didn't make shots, but Marquette got down the elbow anytime they wanted in that Indiana game. Anytime they wanted, they just couldn't make the shots. And I still think Marquette's a really good elbow driving team. The elbow is one of the most vulnerable places that you can get on the floor because it puts the defense in such indecision on help. Right? And people that can attack the elbows, and we've always trained it hard. Victor was incredible in the elbows. Yogi was incredible in the elbows.
Wasn't Sheehy pretty good at the elbows?
Sheehy was very good. And a lot of it was you missed it because he was cutting so well. Right? But those guys could really drive the elbow. So, that's a huge part of the game. And Indiana has not really been beaten on that, man. They've gotten more physical. They've really improved. They're impressive, man. They really are. They don't have the size, and they're going to have to address that over time, and I think they will because he's a very good coach. He's a very good recruiter, and they got a ton of money. So you should be able to address those things. But what they have done with Sam Alexis, adding Nick Dorn to that lineup, the improvement of Connor Enright, and just the absolute yin and yang of Tucker and Lamar is huge. And I might be missing somebody. But, what are they getting? 90-some% of their points are coming from
upperclassmen? You hit it. We played Trent Sisley, the freshman, a little bit, but
he's going to be a good player.
And they're trying to get – they're not trying. They are getting Miles more in the rotation for size and on the defensive end and athleticism, but he's still got –
there's an improvement because he wasn't doing much early on. Exactly. So they've done a great job of developing their best players, developing their depth, and figuring out what guys could do that really fit their team. And that's great coaching. That what Darian has done has not been married to his style of play and system. That's what makes Matt Painter so good. Over all the years, people can love him, hate him. Matt Painter has always been able to adjust his system to his players. And yes, you recruit to a system, but at times the way this world goes, you got to be able to adjust it. And that's why Matt is so good. And I think Coach DeVries is well on his way to being like that in Indiana, which is, I think, the whole key to coaching now because it's going to be different every year. It's absolutely going to be different.
Well, and even in a given game, because I feel like coming into the season and for the large part of the front side of the season, they really wanted to construct the offense, especially with Reed Bailey being able to play face up to the basket.
Yeah, and he can do that.
And he can, but now I think they have Sam is starting, Reed's coming off the bench, and a lot of it is maybe matchup or situational as to far what's going on. But Darren even said after the most recent press conference, he admitted that he had not seen what Sam was capable of earlier in the season and said that was on me. And now we're leaning into that. What does it tell you about a coach who will say publicly that I've made a mistake earlier in the season and I'm course correcting now?
Well, it's keeping your fan base with you, right? It's not talking under them. It's not talking over them. It's not trying to go out and get viral sound bites. It's not trying to say outlandish things. It's saying, hey, you know what? This guy's getting better. He's been good all year, but we figured out a way to make him better. And I think it's good, and I think when you do what he did, because you'll see some coaches get up that want to pat themselves on the back to the point where they pull a shoulder out on the point where they're talking about player development, right?
Yeah.
Well, no. Darian's saying, hey, no, Darian's giving you an unbelievable testimony about player development without saying, hey, look at us.
Right.
Right? And I think that's pretty strong, man. I really do. And I don't know him like that. I've only been around him a couple times. Most I've ever talked to him was a pregame for Marquette, but they're impressive. That staff is impressive. Obviously, I know some guys there, but I think the key for them going forward in February and into March is when they play those bigger, better teams, right, where they struggle getting things to the rim. They got to keep the physicality so they can get fouled on the perimeter, right, because they're a very physical driving team, right? Not just Tucker, but the improvement of Enright. And somebody told me, well, he's been like that back in the Valley. I said, well, maybe I didn't pay enough attention when he was in the Valley,
Right.
because he looks pretty good to me right now, right? And it's like, that is going to be key. Can we get fouled without scoring inside? Can we keep our break going? But I think when you don't have the size advantage, like they're not going to have very many times, you have got to do a great job of guarding the ball on the perimeter so your bigs don't have to overhelp, because that's where you get in trouble. You know, when you got to get your bigs overhelping and stepping up, when you got to get your bigs in rotation, when you got to get your bigs out of position to rebound, it's really, really hard to win. And so I would say that, to me, and it's getting better, it's definitely getting better, but I would say that, to me, is the biggest thing they got to continue to have on defense, is better ball containment, so that the bigs don't have to overhelp and get out of position. Because then the other thing it does, it not only screws your rebounding up with your bigs, it puts enormous pressure on your guards to block out and rebound. And that becomes hard to win against bigger teams. So I like their team.
All right. I'm going to ask you to take a step back from just looking at Indiana. You've got perspective as a coach. The last time you coached, NIL was on the way up, but the revenue share hadn't started yet. Here we are at the apex of revenue share and NIL and the court system screwing the NCAA and all that. You're commissioner. I'm making you commissioner of college basketball. What are the 2 or 3 things, and you can make any rule you want. What are the 2 or 3 things you wish you could do to fix this world that we're in right now in college basketball?
Well, the first thing I'm doing is whatever office I get into, I'm making sure there's enough rooms in the conference room, because I'm going out and hiring the absolute best defense lawyers, a couple of trial lawyers, and some private investigators. And then I want to find people that have either been to jail, have escaped jail, that really knew how to launder money and knew all the, I'm not kidding, that knew how to launder all the tricks. But first, I'm hiring the best possible lawyers I can hire that would look at it and say, okay, this is how people try to get around the rules. Okay, because that's what it is. I mean, that's all this is. And this really goes back to years before, without diving too far into it. With the previous NCAA president, they were more interested in putting committees together to protect themselves and to try to get an answer that they didn't know the question, right? They didn't know all the questions that were being formed. Well, the NIL and people want to get paid. They didn't know the level that people were going to get ready to do this, right? So they just wanted to keep it at bay and keep it status quo and really, for lack of better words, survive. I mean, committees were put together to get the result they wanted, not the result that was reality. So I think the lawyer thing, to me, is really, really huge, because you've got to be able to combat ahead of time. And you've got to know how people that have laundered money, that have been in big business like that and those kind of deals, how they think, right? And I'm not saying everybody in college sports launders money. That's not what I'm thinking. I'm talking about people that understand that world. Then I'm going to put in that outside of your coach leaving or being fired, you get 1 time to transfer, right? And if you leave past that, okay, you've got to sit a year. And I think that would curb a lot of stuff. The problem with the NIL and the revenue shares, you're not stopping the cheating, right? So you're not stopping the off the books money. You're not stopping it. And so you're going to put that committee together and those private investigators together, and you're going to take those people that understand that. So if we do catch you, okay, you're done. All right, you're done. And we're not going to catch all of you, right? But if we catch enough and you're done because of it, we may curb some of it, but we're never going to curb all of it, right? And that's why, I mean, just think about what Dabo Sweeney did with Pete Golding and tell me when you've heard that before. Have you ever heard that before?
Never.
That's how bad this profession is right now when it comes to the business of it. And that's why the NCAA, everybody's got a watchful eye on how they're going to handle this stuff and how they were going to handle the Charles Bediako stuff. But like, to me, that's the biggest stuff. There's got to be. I had a coach the other day almost high major coach that said his athletic director has not brought up the APR in 3 years. And they've worked together. I mean, this is a good crew now. This is a good place. And he said he hasn't brought up APR in 3 years. Now think about that. And think about that was one of the biggest priorities every day for me when I got to Indiana.
I was going to say, we all read about stories about
because
how
our APR was so bad, right?
Yes.
The bane of your existence.
4 straight years of 1,000 APR. I didn't even get a pat on the back for that back there.
Yeah.
But that's what you lived by back then. So at some point, it's not just about the graduation rates. The other thing I'm going to do as a commissioner is we're going to make sure we're taking every step to help them while they're there and help them when they leave. Who's going to be responsible for their mental health? Who is going to be responsible for that transition in life? Because the money is crazy, and there's already numerous stories of guys that are making more in college than they've made in 2 years or 3 years overseas. I mean, think about how much Charles Bediako would have made this year compared to the 3 years of the G League. It's probably one reason he came back. So that would be the biggest thing to me. But my biggest priority is getting those lawyers, private investigators, and some probably white-collar criminals that absolutely know how this is done at a high level. And also some people that understand the street level, because I think there's too many people that don't understand how this all works. And it's not about not paying players. That would never not come out of my mouth. And it's not about even totally putting a limit on it. But you got to put a limit on the off-the-books money. You got to catch the off-the-books money, because if I've only got $1 million and you got $8 million, well, we got a big issue, right? Like there's a big difference between you and me. But if we both have $8 million and I'm spending another $1.5 million, $2 million on off-the-books money, you got a heck of an advantage that I don't have. I mean, you got a heck of an advantage.
We got
to stop that.
Would you support going to a just real official, their employees collectively bargain, their union repped? Like, would you be in support of just kind of?
Yeah, I think you have to. Because there's too many people that lay awake at night trying to figure out their way around it.
Right.
And I don't blame them, man. There's so much money in this. There's so many more ways to make money. I mean, the three of us could get certified as an agent probably by spending a couple hours online, and we'd be done. Right. And sending some paperwork in, and they'd either email it back to us, or we may have to wait 3 business days to get it back in the mail. But right, I mean, and that hurts the ones that are really good at this.
Right.
Like,
no,
this is not
there are
the
people.
agent's fault.
Look, we've dealt with some people that call themselves agents, and they are just common criminals.
But there's some ones that are great. There's some ones that are great.
No doubt. There's really good agents out there.
And I think I'm with you. See, I think that's where, to me, the whole lawyer thing comes in. And I don't know who those people are, but I would darn well know if I took that job, right? And I hope. I don't think there is a college basketball commissioner, just like I don't think there's a college football commissioner. We'd already know who they are. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would already be clear who those people are.
No, there isn't. We need one.
There isn't.
We need one.
We need a group of the best lawyers around and somebody to run that group and figure out how we're going to be able to overcome somebody's great whim. That's what we're going to have to. That's what has to happen. That doesn't take money out of people's pockets. It keeps it somewhat level, so you don't have a Charles Bediako situation,
right?
Where 3 teams lost to a guy that went to the NBA, that entered the NBA. We lose sight of the fact he entered the NBA draft. He just didn't get drafted, right? And which is mind-boggling to me. I mean, I can't imagine where my mind would be if I was one of those 3 losses. I can't imagine it.
In this brave new world of all these shenanigans and headaches off the court, how are you seeing it affecting the game on the court?
Oh, I think I could talk about this forever. I don't have the time, but it's a lack of individual player development. It's so transactional right now that there's such a mindset to get the most out of who you have, because you're not going to have them very long. So there's so much put into how you play, your schemes on offense and defense, this play, that defense. And I think what happens is, yes, players are working, yes, players are being developed, but do we have the best people on our staffs, or did we hire people on our staffs that are really, really, really good at making guys better. Because if they don't get better throughout the year, they're never going to have enough energy to improve their confidence level, right? And I think you can see it, especially this time of year with some of the teams that are playing really well, like their players are getting better. So I think it hasn't changed the whole staffing issue yet. The way you put together a staff 5-6 years ago is nothing how I would put it together now. It's not even close. And it just isn't, because the needs of the player on campus, the needs of the player development-wise, being able to have people they can count on and talk to, because there's so many people in their heads on a daily basis, giving them illusions of grandeur. And the illusions of grandeur are you can make more money, which is not an illusion, it's a fact, but you lose so much sight of the day-to-day process. So I think the game struggles at times. I think communication is still a problem on the floor. You still see it glaringly with teams and switching. We're 20 plus games in and the communication is not good. You see it. I think you're going to continue to see an inordinate amount of lopsided scores that were relatively close with 10 minutes or 8 minutes. But because somebody doesn't believe they can win down 10 with 5 minutes to go, they're going to lose more games by 20 plus. And it's happening already. I don't know the data on that, but it's happening already, and you're going to continue to see it because letting go of that mental rope, right, that we can keep pulling, that proverbial rope, like we're in this together, it's so easy to give up on that because of distractions and because you get down. And then the other thing I see I think teams that have great conditioning and endurance stand out more than ever in the last 10 minutes of a game. And it's always been a separator for like a Rick Pitino. Our teams had a lot of that, especially when we were good at Indiana. Todd Golden has this at Florida last year because of your depth, right? But what happens is you see it in the NBA. I see it all the time in the NBA doing these games. You start missing shots, and there are way, way, way more teams that are offensively driven to defend one way or the other. If they're scoring, they're defending way better. If they're not scoring, they're not defending close. Distractions, getting beat on cuts, getting distracted with referees, not having hands up, not being down in a stance, all those different things. And to me, coaching is reminding. And I think the best coaching staffs are the ones that can remind their players not only of the play that's coming, but of what they've got to do inside of a game. And when I'm at games or when I watch games on TV, I'm not sure I see that to the level that it should be at. And I'm not saying it's not with a lot of good teams, but there's a lot of teams, they leave it to chance, man. And there's just too many people that are in the business for the recruiting, for the business side of it, for the portal side of it, for the business side of it, rather than absolutely day in and day out waking up and going to sleep with a process of how did we make the players better today.
Who do you love right now that you've seen? Who stands out to you? Yeah.
I think Arizona's really good. Here's what I would say about anybody that's watching this with watching basketball. And this year's especially like this. There's a lot of teams that have really good strengths, right? But there's going to be nights as you go into the tournament, especially when you go from Sweet 16 to Elite 8, that you can't get to your strengths. Mm-hmm. So are your weaknesses so much that they will beat you, or are your weaknesses so few that you can still have something to count on when you can't get to one of the 2 or 3 things that you do the best?
That's interesting.
And so I think, like, when you look at Arizona, great example, they don't take many threes. Now, I do think they can make threes, but I think they're the best team. Are they going to get into it? Because they've got the most high quality starter depth, just like Florida did a year ago, just like UConn did before that. And that's what this is, man. I mean, that's for Sam Alexis. He was a starter to me on Denzel Aberdeen was a starter on 80% or higher of the high major teams a year ago. Sam Alexis was a starter on 70% or more of the high major teams a year ago. To me, just my opinion, right? My opinion of it. And so, like, you got to have that. If you can't win when your main strengths go away, you're not getting to the Final Four, right? And I think, to me, That's big. Like Florida made threes the other night. One of the graphics on the ESPN2 game, in the Georgia game the other night, they made a highlight. They showed Florida's three-point shooting on the year, and then they said they were 6 of 14 in the game. Like, you hear 6 of 14, you're not thinking that's that great. But when you're shooting 29% from three, that's pretty good, right? But in answer to your question, I would say the top 5 teams to me would be, I'm going to go with those two: Arizona, Florida.
Where are you at with Michigan?
I don't know if they're in my 5. I think I still think they're going to struggle with good shooting teams. Now you'd have to beat them. It might be UConn is in the top 5.
Okay. Duke?
No, not top 5.
Houston?
They're really good, but they're not. I would go with, because they're so physical, I would go with Houston.
Yeah.
I want to say Iowa State. So I would go with Iowa State or Houston. I'll put Michigan in there. But I'm not sold on anybody that's like far and away better in the Big Ten. You know, I think there's a really good group at the top. Michigan's got maybe the best individual talent. But again, I mean, they would have lost to Maryland if Farrell Payne didn't get hurt early in that game.
They also turn the ball over a ton.
Yeah,
they seem to get a little loose.
Their big struggle getting out on the perimeter. You're not beating them at the rim. You got to beat Michigan on the perimeter. And so if you've got perimeter shooters, I mean, Nebraska could have beat them and didn't have Rink Mast or the freshman, right? And Penn State took them to a 2 or a 3-point game at Penn State and didn't have their leading scorer, Caden Mingo. And
Northwestern
I think
gave them some trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dusty's a heck of a coach. I think what Dusty has, like that, throwing the ball, length of the floor, outlet, like that's a real edge.
Right.
You're going to get 8 to 10 points a game on teams that aren't prepared for that. And when you get into the NCAA tournament, when teams haven't played you, I mean, they're getting it now and teams know it's coming. So like little things like that, those long, deep outlets, like Florida, they're like our teams were at Indiana and the Marquette teams, but really at Indiana. Yogi Ferrell and those guys, Jordan Hulls, they never came back for an outlet pass. The outlet pass was always up the floor.
Oh, that's
and we
interesting.
worked like crazy, throwing the ball, getting it out quick, throwing the ball ahead. Well, we were never, I mean, if we stopped and had to walk it up, we were having a serious film session the next day, right? Because that's not what we were going to do, right? And like when I watch Florida, they never come back to get the outlet. Well, eventually in a 70, 75, 80 possession both ways game, that wears the other team down. And so like I'm looking at that type of stuff. So like what's going to happen if they take away your main strengths, and are your weaknesses too big to win with? What are your edges that you have? And you're automatically in the conversation if you've got 8 really good players. So everybody I just mentioned has that, including Iowa State, really including Kansas.
Yeah.
And Duke is not there. They've got a really, really good team, and they're getting better. But I'm not sure I'd put them in that group.
Us Hoosier fans are known to be delusional, but I don't think any of us out there are putting ourselves in that conversation this season. You mentioned, though, these teams that can they win when their strengths are taken away. And I think one thing we've seen from Indiana here in a couple of the last games is not hitting 3-point shots and yet still winning.
Physicality of the drive. It's physicality of the drive, Ward. They drive the ball, man. They drive the ball. They've got ways to get fouled. Like if you don't have a post-up game, you've got to have ways to get fouled, right? We were so good in those years at Indiana with Cody. We led the country in free throw attempts over 2 years and free throws made because Cody could not only get scored and get fouled in the post, he could drive the ball.
Yes.
Victor could drive the ball. And I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just saying, you have to have ways to win when your strengths are not there. And this is where Indiana's done such a good job. They've taken these older guys, these physical guys, and made them much more physical offensively on how they win. They look different to me. And I could be wrong because I don't watch every game. I have not watched every game. I watch enough games, but I haven't watched every game.
No, they're different. I think at the beginning of this year, to your point about strengths and weaknesses, which I love, at the beginning of this year, maybe up until halfway, if we weren't making threes, there was no way we could compete in the game. And that has changed. They have gotten a lot more physical. The Sam Alexis
No,
the Sam
I feel
Alexis
like
development has changed.
yeah, I feel this is all in the last 10 games or less that
Yeah,
we've
no, I
really
agree.
had other options.
Yeah. I
Tom,
think Connor Way is key coming back, that he doesn't try to overdo, the 3-point shooting, right?
Right.
Connor Way, I did one of his games last year. Really, really good at getting to the basket. Really, really good at getting into the paint. Whether it's popular or not, I really don't care. When I watched him play, and I said this on the air, he had a really good elbow and in game. Like, he was really good. But when he got in that Kentucky game, now that length was an issue, right? Yeah. And he's not the 3-point shooter. And I think there were too many times early on where he was taking shots he can't make.
I agree.
And if they've got to figure, is he back yet?
He's back, but only in spot minutes. I mean, they
really got to figure that out.
Yeah,
because he can get to the rim. There's a level of, but that's a guy that's had to make a huge jump, right, from where he was at to where he is. And I think if they can figure that out and get him to where they can utilize him, get him where he understands his role.
Yes.
It's what happens to too many of these kids is they come in, and you see it all the time, and you still see it. And I'm not saying this was him, but I know he was an expensive player. They come in and they feel like they've got to prove their money, right? Or they come in and they think their money is equivalent to their game. And that is not the case. I think that hurt Kentucky early on. Like, they're a way better team than what they were. Way better team. And that doesn't mean they're going to win the league, but like, they're a way better team. And they got a high-priced roster, right? But it's like, your price tag does not equate to your success on the floor. It equates to your projection or what you did before. It has nothing to do with what you're doing on a daily basis, what you put into each day and how you fit with your team, and did you choose the right place to play, coaching-wise, style-wise, and development-wise. That's what this thing comes down to.
And, the other thing with the money is it is a reflection of what the individual market was for you at that moment. Like, if you're a team that missed out on 2 other guys and you're desperate to get somebody, you've got a little bit more money to spend on somebody. You may overreach on somebody because you have to get
It's a seller's market, man. I mean, it's a seller's market, and until it gets a little bit closer to both, right, where people will say, no, we're not paying that. And
we need a cap. We need a real cap.
Well, but again, there's always going to be that, I don't look at it that way because I live this business. I know how bad the cheating is, and I know it's still there because you're paying extra people. Everybody says, well, there's no cheating anymore. Oh, yes, there is. When you're paying you $50,000 to deliver me and Ward $100,000 to deliver me, that's extra money, right? I always say I want to come back as a collective consultant because that's the easiest way to cheat in the game.
Yeah,
right?
No, I mean, look, there's no doubt. I want to ask you one more basketball question, and then I'll hand it over to Ward. We talk about this all the time, and I'm curious. I don't think we've ever talked to you about it. Scheduling. I'll just be honest. I hate bye games. I hate them. I don't know what they do.
You haven't coached. You haven't coached. You wouldn't hate them if you coached.
Tell us, educate me why they're necessary.
Because this is a wins and loss business. And don't let anybody tell you anything differently. And you've got to have enough wins on your schedule. And the other part, the big part of it, and you're seeing some of this change, but this was not like this when I was coaching, is like, you have to have enough money for you. Like, if we didn't play enough home games at Indiana, we were hurting that budget because the money that Indiana Games was making was helping pay for other things. Whether people want to believe it or not, it was the truth. This was, the TV money and things like that are so high right now, but they were always big, but it wasn't like it is now. So, like, when you're at a place like Indiana, you have a responsibility for the rest of the athletic department. And this is pre-NIL, and it's still important that you're getting the home games. Now what we see is more games that are created for NIL.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is, which puts even more pressure on that bottom line. Because remember, you as a coach, you've got to have the money for your players. The athletic director, the athletic department, the school, they got to have the money for the sports programs, right? Like, there's got to be enough money, and you've got to find different ways to make it. But in this day and age, I always felt like this, and I didn't look at this at Marquette, but I looked at this at Indiana, especially after year 3. I looked at this big. We've got to eliminate every possible way they can find to fire us. And that's how I coached my last 6 years.
That doesn't seem to be a good place to be.
But it's reality. It was reality.
You think
And
most coaches feel that way?
I don't know if most coaches feel it, but eventually they figure it out. And when I mean that is this, it's different now because really, academics were a huge part of that. Academics aren't that part right now, right? Unless you got a bunch of kids that get caught cheating or something like that. You always have to work right now in a way that will, how do we eliminate reasons that they could fire us if we're winning outside of losing, right? Like, because when you lose now, you're going to be out and the buyouts aren't that big and things like that. But when you're building a program and you're going through the years where you got to try to get it right, you got to eliminate, we got to have crowds. We've got to make sure we're making money here. We've got to have outreach and be in the community and be around. We got to recruit well. We got to touch all these aspects. I used to have meetings on this at Indiana. Like what are we doing in these areas, right? J.D. Campbell would be in those meetings. They weren't open to everybody, but they were open to the people like, okay, these are the things we got to make sure. And it wasn't like we were doing it during the season. We were doing it in the off season. Like, because I didn't trust the environment I was in. And frankly,
Right.
you know that. Mm-hmm. And so like every day you're working to say, okay, we've got to make sure we're covering every aspect. What I think it does is it makes you a better coach. And it makes you more well-rounded on all the other areas. And what happens now that if you don't understand how to friend raise outside of fundraise with everybody on your staff, you're behind. And a lot of people have not figured that out yet. They've just not figured that. That's why building the proverbial old school staff it's absolutely stupid.
I know you said this to us about 2 years ago, and I've repeated it to everybody. I love it. Like your mind, how it changed for what the role of an assistant coach was pre-NIL to what it is now. It's really a smart way of looking at it.
Because the head coaching role has changed so much because you have to win now.
Yes.
Right? There is so little building. There's always going to be people that are grandfathered in, right? And it's the same way in football. There's always going to be people that have been at it long enough that, but in the way athletic departments change and athletic directors change and presidents change and boards change, and there's so much money that people see with the NIL, with the recruiting, but there's all this other money on the outside that you still have got to make sure you're responsible for. And what happens is I had it at Marquette. I didn't have it in Indiana. I didn't have it at Georgia. I didn't have people that I was with like, man, I'm in it with them. They're in this with me. I learned during year 3. That's not the case. Okay. But at Marquette, we had that for the most part. Like we're in this together, but it was a different time, right? It was a different time. Like we're going to be able to get through some hard days. You start thinking about getting through hard days at Georgia and things like that, man, that ain't the way it works. That's not the way it works anymore. And that's why contracts, buyouts, the right kind of agents, staff money, that stuff is so important. And
do you think it's fair for fans in this given new environment we're in? Is it fair for a fan of Indiana? And this isn't about Darren specifically, but he's the coach of Indiana now, so let's use him. He's in year 1. Is it fair for a fan of Indiana, with as much money as being given to the program via revenue share and NIL, by the way, a lot of that NIL money being asked from us, we're giving that money. Is it fair for a fan to be like, we need to have a team that can compete for a Big Ten championship in 2 or 3 years? And if not, move on. Is that fair?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's fair. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. Now, as a coach, would you like to have more time to be able to do that? No, it's all changed. And I go back to this. If again, I'm not trying to be the old man on the lawn, even though I'm going to be 60 here next month. But if coaches would have been way more concerned about nailing the cheaters back when it was going on, okay, and the cheating was rampant in so many places, and the NCAA had more power to be able to go after some of those, and there wouldn't have been these discrepancies that have come on who was getting paid and who wasn't. And eventually the money thing would have come. But so much of it was because it was the haves and the have-nots, and it didn't have anything to do with who had the better practice gym, right? That was what it looked like on the outside. But I mean, that's the same way in football. Come on, man, it's what it was. And then in the perfect storm.
I got to ask you though,
I don't think you're wrong to say what you said though. Like, no, those expectations are real now, whether a coach wants them or not. Those are absolutely real.
So, but
I'm sorry,
back to your coaches thing and the cheating, and you've been pretty vocal about cheating and stuff for a while. But my question is, like, there are those of you who play the game the right way and stay within the rules that, I mean, I get it. There's gray areas and stuff, but we know what black and white cheating is. Why don't you guys call out the cheaters more?
Well, because it was a couple things, and it's a great call. It's a great question. It's a couple things. Number one, you realized that you called it out. You were the pariah because they were not going to get that person if they didn't have unbelievably hand-delivered proof. Okay? And then because of the law system and the subpoena powers and all those kind of things, you realize, wait a minute, all we are is getting mad. Oh, I've had plenty of conversations with people behind the scenes outside of a bathroom at a basketball game or inside of a eating room. One time one guy says, "Man, Tom," he said, "why won't you guys play us?" I said, "Because we have absolutely nothing in common with the way that you recruit and the way that we recruit, other than we both coach college basketball."
Wow.
Absolutely. I'll never forget it, right? And both of us in an area in a game in one of those little hospitality rooms where they have food. I don't care, right? But there was nothing I could do about it.
So you felt like putting it out there would just come back to hurt you more and do nothing to affect real change.
And especially when I was at Indiana, that went in one ear and right out the other. Nobody cared about that. And with the people I was talking to in administration, they didn't care about that. But no, I think the proving it, the knowing it, and being able to prove it, and then putting yourself out there, it wasn't worth it because you put yourself out there, you have no net. Like there's no net to fall back into.
Right.
There just isn't. Right. There just isn't. And so now that's like why this whole Dabo Pete Golding thing is going to be really interesting. Like, man, he served it up to you. Right. Unless he's totally not telling the truth, which I don't know how you would go up there and not
clearly is telling the truth.
Exactly. Like
clearly
he served it up to you. You don't get it like that. So
but to your point, Tom, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
well,
a tough
not
business.
publicly.
Right. That's fair.
You've got to love coaching. You've got to love coaching and developing players more than you loathe the business. And I felt like that for a long time.
That's great.
And I felt like that at Indiana, and I felt like that at Georgia. It just got tough at the end. Once we had the administrative change and the portal, I've hit that before, but portal and COVID and the NIL money, all that changed it. But like, you got to love what you're doing. And like when I go back to Marquette a week ago, or when I go to see Cody and Victor go in, or see those guys play, or text late at night with OG or Anthony Edwards, like, man, yeah. It was way worth it to have those relationships more than the problems in the business. It really was. And you just have to look at it like that. That's why I don't have a lot of sympathy for the guys that are crying from the yacht all the time. Right? Just stop it. Right? Because while you're crying from the yacht, there's some coaches sitting in the bottom of some makeshift tugboat that are getting launch missiles ready. Right? Like, and you're going to deal with it. And it's like, come on, man. You know what this business is.
Well, I got to say, and I know you won't say anything bad about him. I know. But your old mentor, Tom Izzo, complains more about the state of college basketball than anybody else. And honestly,
yeah, he's earned it, though. He's 30-plus years.
I'd say this. It's a little bit of bullshit, man. It's a little bit of bullshit.
I look at it differently. I get your point. But I look at it differently. And I would say this, maybe you're right, but tell me when he in 30-plus years put himself out there in the cheating or stuff like that. And I'm not sticking up for him as much as, here's what I would say about him. He's been consistent since day one. Press conferences, how he viewed things, how he stood up for things. It ain't like he just started being that way. That's the only thing I would say in argument to what you said, and I'm not trying to
No. I think that's fair.
You're saying, like, since day one, that's who he's been, right? That's who he's been. So did I enjoy competing against him? Did we have physical games? Did, he say things to the refs and not want the ref talking to me? Yeah, man, it's competition. I'll tell you what he is now. This is what people sleep on him with. He is an incredible competitor. Incredible.
He's an all-timer. I have no.
Yeah,
I just
I
think
get
that
what you're
some
saying.
and Painter, who obviously I have to hate because he's Purdue, but Painter talks about like, it's got to be about education and it's got to be like, okay, that's great, but that's not the world we're in right now. So what is the real solution that
Nobody
you're
has one.
offering to the world? Those aren't real solutions. They're just complaints. They're
Yeah, but
just
we could.
complaints.
I'm not disagreeing with you, because we could say that about pretty much every region of the country. There's coaches that are like that, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. For sure.
And the press conferences and the times in front of the media should not be therapy sessions.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what they are for many of them.
For a lot of
many
people.
of them.
For
many
a
of
lot
them.
of people.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people. And people will hear this and say, well, he's just sticking up for his buddy. No, that's who he's been for 30 plus years. And those guys aren't wrong. They're not. Matt Painter's not wrong. Matt Painter knows as well as anybody, just like Tom Izzo knows as well as anybody who's cheating, who's not, who's doing what. Tom Izzo knows way more than you could ever. I sat with him did a game in there in December. We probably sat together between 2.5 hours watching film. Trust me, he knows, right? Like he's a spokesman. He's not going to come out there and say it. All right, he's not going to come out there and say it. What I think those guys do is they're trying to have a voice because they care about the profession a lot. What I have trouble with here, let me see if this makes sense, and then we'll close with this because I think this makes sense. This whole we got to be transparent, we've got to be this, we got to have rules. Our game. When I start hearing that term, our game, okay, 90% of the time, what that person means is my team. They don't mean our game.
Right.
They mean my team. Now, Izzo and Painter and some others, I don't see them like that. I see those guys as guys that, like, they're speaking for the game. But there's way too many people. And this goes back to long before any of this. Sitting in Big Ten meetings, sitting in Big East meetings, sitting in SEC meetings, and listening to some of that nonsense. Right? Like, no.
Yeah.
You want what's best for you, all right, not what's best for the game. And you know what, guys, that ain't changing. That's not changing. That's not changing.
I certainly want what's best for Indiana University.
Yeah, see, so you're no different than anybody else.
No,
you got a straight bias. You guys got straight bias.
Yeah, a proud bias. And what I would like I wrap up with is so self-centered of a question, and you'd expect nothing less from us. Tom, looking at this team and what we've talked about, their growth and development here, especially let's say over the last half dozen games for this season, and these high expectations of Indiana fans, even with a first-year coach who had to scramble to put a staff and team together. What do you think now is the ceiling of this team as March is not that far away?
I can't answer that, but I can answer this. They're improving, right? And when you're getting visible improvement in February, which it is visible. And because there's some teams that are existing, right? There's some teams that, you know, that the ship left port a while back and that's not coming back, right? There's some teams that are existing, and that'll play out over the next couple of weeks. But here's what this comes down to, okay? Every day, do your players enjoy playing with each other, okay? That doesn't mean that they're not thinking about the next thing. It doesn't mean they're not thinking about the portal and all that. It doesn't mean that. It means they enjoy and they're locked into each other. It means that they feel like they're getting better. And does the coaching staff enjoy going to work with that team every day? If you can answer yes, or as close to yes on all three of those, you got a chance to keep going into March. Because there's teams that are ranked right now that can't answer yes to all three of those. Promise you they can. Right? So I would say this to Indiana because I don't know on the expectations. Because again, it's like so many teams, because the way they're built, a lot of it's going to come down to the opponent. You know,
Totally.
Right?
Luck.
So it's just more than ever. That's part of it. So But the bottom line is, I would say this: no matter what happens with that team this year in March, it is mid-February or close. It's mid-February, and they are getting better, right? And so when you see that, you got to be encouraged about the season. You got to be encouraged about the future, and I think that's strong, right? I mean, I just do. I think the most important thing for Indiana fans, and it's hard because fans all over the country are thinking about March and mid-March. Appreciate, and I've not seen them practice or any of that kind of stuff, so I'm not carrying water for them. I'm just saying what I see. they look like they're getting better and figuring this thing out every day in a really, really hard league, one that's as hard as any in the country, right? And to go where they were from the Michigan game to where they have gone, and that doesn't mean they're not going to get popped by somebody else, but to go from that says a lot. I mean, that says a lot.
That's great.
Because they're growing and learning. They don't have last year's experiences together to fall back on, right? Some teams have that. They don't have.
IU football had that.
Exactly. There you go. Great example. And again, so much of what Kurt did is because he evaluated so well at James Madison.
Totally.
Right? Yes, he's evaluating well at Indiana, but he evaluated really well at James Madison, and he had a staff that knew what to do with the guys. So, like, I think Indiana's moving, man. I think they're going to be good. I think he's a really good coach, good staff. And as long as they keep, there's no reason they shouldn't be in the top couple with money there, right? There's no reason whatsoever. And they're going to have to be because there's teams at the top of that league. Michigan, I mean, they're rolling. Illinois is rolling. I mean, those teams got a lot of money, man.
Yep.
And there's people that believe, and I don't know this. I'm just going based on the friends that I have in college basketball that think like the minimum to be able to compete moving forward next year is going to be $12 million.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's
what it is.
I don't know that to be true or not. And I'm not acting like I'm in that circle right now. Just when we talk about it and hear about it, I know there's teams that are already well preparing to be in the 18, 20, 21 million range, right? And so is what it is.
It is.
But I don't think there's any reason that Indiana should not be continue to be one of the best resource programs because it's hard to argue with how great that fan base is. And it's a phenomenal fan base.
I love that. I do want to just revisit the coaching thing one more time because I'm just going to say this one thing because I love what you said about like, you know, it's hard to be the person to go out there because who knows if anything's going to happen and you don't have a safety net to fall back on.
Yeah.
Okay. Tom Izzo and Matt Painter have all the safety net that they need. They're not going anywhere.
That's why they can say what they want. They can say
but they don't. But they don't. They don't call out the cheating coaches. They don't They don't. And they could.
Nobody does, though. Nobody does.
I know, but it should be those guys who do it.
There's not a. But here again, maybe it'll change. You know, going forward, they're not gonna because it's not about the backdrop. What's going to happen when they do?
Don't you think they can put pressure on for a real investigation?
No, absolutely not. There's no coaches that can do that. There's no coaches that can do that.
Okay.
No. The only guy that I think could do that was Mike Krzyzewski. I think he was the only one that could really, with his words.
Yeah, but he was cheating.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he was the one that could put pressure on the NCAA. I think everybody felt like if he brought it up, it was going to get looked into. He'd earned that. He had earned that as a legend of the game.
But even Izzo and Painter aren't at that level.
I don't think anybody's like that. No, I'm not condoning it. I sit from a different seat now, and so I see it for what it is. But I've also lived it where you put yourself out there. There's not. First off, 90% of the people that are out there that are following this don't think there's any cheating anymore.
Right.
And
that's true.
Fully is. There fully is. And it's not just the cheating. It's not just like we're paying cash. It's all the other stuff that goes into it.
Well, Tom, some of it isn't cheating. Like it's cheating conversationally, but it's not like, okay, you want to come here and I'm giving you $5 million to come here or $2 million to come here. Oh, and you need me to hire this guy who has no business having a job, but you need me to give him $200,000. That's not cheating, right? Like what's the rule that says you can't hire somebody?
No, there is no rule on that anymore. So really at the end of the day, unless you're just doing brown bag
tampering
cash,
is cheating. Tampering is cheating.
Yeah, but that's you got to be, I would say this. That's why that Pete Golding stuff was interesting.
Yeah.
You got to be really, that's why I want to see what happens with that, because I cannot believe a guy that is as decorated of a defensive coordinator than as a head coach. See, what I think, my theory, don't ever put it past, and I'm not saying this happened there, but I know this happens. Don't ever put it past multiple phones and people on staff using those phones at the be and come guarantee it happens in recruiting. Guarantee it that people are using phones in recruiting that have the head coach's name. They think they're hearing from the head coach.
Interesting.
In football especially. I'm sure it happens in basketball, though I don't have any examples in my head, but I know of examples in football. I've seen it done.
That's interesting.
I've just seen it done. So I'm not saying that happened. I would just say, like, if that guy did that, like, you really, really have to have a very low self-awareness. And I just find it hard to believe that somebody, again, I'm just giving you my opinion. I find it hard to believe that somebody would be that, forget brazen, somebody would be that
stupid.
I don't want to say that word. I want to say lack of self-awareness to do that.
Yeah, but Tom, see, I will disagree with you there. There is no underestimating how little self-awareness some people have.
I agree with you, and that costs people jobs. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Every profession.
But I don't. But neither one of us know him, unless you know him and I don't.
No, that's
neither
true.
one of us know him. So
I'm not talking about him specifically.
I can't speak for him. I've just seen the thing done with. And again, I'm not saying this happened there. I've seen people in recruiting using the head coach's phone or a phone that had the head coach's name on it. It's been going on. I at least 15 years ago saw that, right? And it's like, it happens. It happens.
Right.
And I don't know.
Here's what I know.
You know what? Enjoy the process. Indiana's getting better.
That's
just won a national championship when no one thought that was going to happen. There's still nothing like a home game at Assembly Hall. And that team has got a chance to not only keep going this year, but to get a lot better moving down the road. And I think it's great.
Well, let me end with this too. It's in 2028, which we are not that far away from, is the 15-year anniversary of the 2012-13 team. And if Indiana doesn't do a celebration to honor that team for bringing us back and winning the Big Ten and being the number one team in the country for all those weeks and being the number one seed and a Sweet 16 appearance, there is something seriously wrong. And as we get closer to 2028, we will be doing the honoring and forcing the hand. And you need to be back in Assembly Hall for recognition of that team. Because that team, for many fans that are, I would say, under the age of our age, that is their team. I mean, that is their connection to Indiana.
I worry about that sometimes, that because those teams haven't been honored, or they're just finally starting to honor Cody and Victor, that it's not about the past teams, but this was a pretty current team, and those teams did a really good job, right? And it's like,
they're beautiful teams.
Because I see those people all the time on the road, right? People that were a part of the school then, and it's just, you never take away from what those great teams did in the past. But again, I don't know. I don't know the mindset. All I know is this. It's time for Yogi Ferrell. I'll close with this. Yogi Ferrell needs to be in that Hall of Fame.
Agreed.
Jordan Hulse and Christian Watford need to be in that Hall of Fame. I'd love to see Verdell Jones III be in that Hall of Fame. And then let's move on down the line with other guys going forward.
I will say, in terms of where your teams still live today, in the hearts and minds of not just those of us who watch those teams, but I think it was just on X where I saw this a few days ago. It was being passed around by several different people. It was that first half against Michigan with Yogi and Troy and Robert, and just like, scoring 26-1 or whatever that run was, of course, is so cool. But to see the way that team played, the way they shared the ball, the way they moved without the ball, Troy's insane athleticism, it just brought me right back to how much fun we had watching those teams, and we will never forget.
Max Bielfeldt making threes in his comeback to Michigan.
Crazy.
That was really, I tell people this all the time, that was the OG Anunoby coming out party defensively, where people saw like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, we got something different here, because he locked up Zach Irvin and the way he played the top of the key, and all of a sudden, like, he was getting better. But, like, that was the game that OG never looked back after.
And right? I will never forget OG guarding Jamal Murray in the second round of the NCAA tournament to beat, OG all over him like a cheap suit and prevented him from scoring and us winning that game. I'll also remember Thomas Bryant committing the charge. I'll also remember that, but we forgive him because we don't win that game without him.
No, those were good teams. No, I think hopefully people there see that it's really okay to look at those modern day teams because it's only going to help. I mean, OG Anunoby's making over $40 million, right? I mean, it's only going to help the
Thomas
recruiting.
Bryant is about to enter. Isn't this Thomas Bryant's 10th year in the NBA? I think it's 9 or 10. It's 9 or 10.
That they went in 7, 6, 7 next year. Yeah, next year. So no, those guys, and they're still really there's
and Thomas Bryant belongs in the Indiana basketball.
Yeah, I hope they all. Yeah, absolutely. I hope they all get in there. So hopefully Indiana will see that.
And I
don't have a vote. I don't have a vote, so I don't have a vote.
Neither do we, but we got a microphone.
We got a bully pulpit here. And what's also beautiful to see is we were lucky enough to be in Miami for the championship football game and to run into Jordy and Christian and Cody.
Out Victor.
Yeah, I saw Victor at the Rose Bowl, but I saw the other 3 guys in Miami, and that they're, that they like us are just Hoosiers through and through and made it to those games, and we're just being surrounded, mobbed at halftime by all the fans. It's a beautiful thing to see how big a part of the Hoosier family they still are.
Awesome. It really is.
And the only reason they are part of the Hoosier family is because of Tom Crean. Amen. That is the truth.
Well,
that is the only reason.
Together.
We will
those
always
are
thank you.
Great times.
We'll always thank you. All right, you've given us a lot of time.
Great to be with you.
Good luck on all your jobs.
Thanks.
I'm hoping you're getting a big 401k from all of them.
No, I'm enjoying the work. The money's fine. The money's fine, but we saved well. So the money's fine, but I enjoy the work. The work is way more important than the negotiations. So I enjoy it.
All right. Well, Tom, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Always great talking to you.
Thank you. You guys too. Thanks a lot.
That was our guest. That was our guest.
Out of everything he talked about, and we covered a lot of ground on this one, him zeroing in on Sam Alexis was awesome.
Yes.
Right? Like him talking about how they're using him and how much of a difference. I think that Lamar Wilkerson gets, as he should, the adulation because he can. Boy. Right? It's amazing. Yeah. Yes. But Lamar Wilkerson scored a lot of points at the beginning of the year too. Now, he has taken his game to a new level, no doubt. But Sam Alexis is, I think, the biggest reason why this team has improved the most. He's given us an inside presence. He's rebounding the ball well. He's blocking shots. He's finishing at the rim. And Ward, how many times did we talk the first half of the season about we just don't finish? We just don't finish at the rim. Sam Alexis is like 17 of 18 of his last shots.
No, like 21 of 22.
Oh, 21 of 20. I mean, he's finishing. He looks like he's gotten in better shape. He's got more pep in his step, more athleticism, blocking shots.
And we've heard from, behind the scenes, and not behind the scenes, but what's being talked publicly about behind the scenes is Sam brings it every day. He brings the energy. Like he is the emotional, passionate leader in Cook Hall. And that too, we can't really sleep on, because especially when things were seemingly going off the rails a bit, we were 3-5. It's like, how does a team that hasn't been together stay together or grow closer together? And by all reports, Lamar is just a wonderful human being, and that's got to help a lot. And for somebody like Tucker, the coach's son, not to hang his head and get upset because he's not getting the kind of points and production in that aspect. So I think there's a lot of credit to go around here. Of course, all it goes back to the coaching staff, but to your point, Sam, who again, he could have maybe wanted to take his ball and go home early in the season when Reed was starting and Sam wasn't getting that love, and Darren admitting that they hadn't maybe recognized what he could bring to the table at that stage. So a lot of credit goes to all these guys for hanging in there. And then of course you can't ignore what Nick Dorn, and obviously it seems like he was sick, right? And he had a couple of games where he sort of was a no-show after he exploded onto the scene. So hopefully that's more of a illness thing or a couple.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he's on the scouting report now.
Yes, he is. But the dynamics changing, because if you've got him and Tucker and Lamar, who you want out there a lot as 3 shooters who can spread it, Sam down low, and Connor ideally running the point,
just getting all into the paint and finding people. Absolutely. Everybody's got a role now.
Right. And that's what's getting more defined now with let's say this new lineup with Nick and Sam in there, because then Reed can come in to spell or matchup dependent for Sam. Tayton, when he gets back to, full health, or even now, assumingly he can come in and give Connor a breather. Trent can maybe come in for one of the other three guys. He can be in the corner. He can be a threat from three. Now you're starting to see like, okay, we got 8 guys who have a role, and now Miles is playing more than Trent, and that's more about length and athleticism on the defensive end. So now you have 9 pretty well defined guys, and it's, it'll be interesting to see, because a lot of these 5 wins have come over not great teams. But
and we play at Illinois and at Purdue the next 2 games. So
yeah, let's see what
if
we've
we're 8-8,
really.
let's see how happy we are.
Let's see what we've really found. And part of that might be not necessarily winning those games, but how do we look? How do we compete? How close are those games?
There should be no reason for us to not compete against Purdue. I'm sorry. They don't have, I think they are totally overrated. I really do. I think Illinois has incredible size that's going to be a problem for us, but we'll see. I think we compete with both of them. I do. I don't know what happens, but I think we compete. As always, follow us on Twitter at Hoosier Hysterics for the hysterics. No E.
No I.
But
But
sometimes
why?
From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric, and as you probably know by now, we're